From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Dominating with Dawson.
Welcome, Ben. We're here. I've heard about this arrive and drive. Sounds like it's too good to be true. I don't have to bring a car. I don't have to prepare anything. I just kind of show up and pay some money, I think. There's got to be more to it. I have no idea what's going on. You've done it a few times.
Yeah, so I've done it. I've done it probably as many times as we've raced our own team's car. I've probably driven other people's cars, maybe even more. So arrive and drive is where you just show up with your checkbook and your safety gear at whatever track you want to go to. I mean, maybe you jump in the car, maybe you jump in a plane, maybe you jump in an ocean liner. But yeah, you show up with your checkbook and your safety gear, and you race the people's car. You come to some sort of terms of agreement. It's going to be this much money per hour, or if you want to rent the race car for the whole weekend, you want to rent a spec Miata for a club race, you can rent one of those for a whole weekend. Want to rent a car just for an HPD, you can certainly do that. There are all these people who are willing to rent you time in their car because that's how they sustain their own efforts.
Right. So I'm assuming it varies depending on car, depending on series, depending on race length, and
Sure, it depends on the wear rate of consumables. You know, if you're going to go through a half a set of brake pads, they figure you're going to maybe use half a set of brake pads over the weekend. It's going to be different than if you're running a Corvette where you might be bombing through two sets, or eating through a bunch of tires, a lot more gas. Yeah.
So if you were the driver that's arriving, you're going to come to an agreement on kind of what you're going to be doing. Hopefully the car goes well throughout the weekend, and you pay a certain amount, and you go in there, you have a great time, and you go home.
Right. Yeah. So there's always different levels of prep. There's different levels of things you're going to negotiate for. Maybe, there are people who will just rent you a car sight unseen as long as the damages are covered. As long as you've already pre-arranged for the damage. If you blow my engine, it's going to be $10,000. You wreck the car, here's the buyout price for what the whole car is worth. If you total this thing, you're going to walk away paying me $35,000. Whatever the rate is, $3,500, $35,000, $35,000. Sorry, $350,000. But if you've raised all that before, I definitely know a guy who builds Specky 46s that does not care, does not give a rip. You show up with your checkbook, go out there and blow the engine. Oh my God, you dummy, you're going to take it back, put another engine in the car, not worry about it. Then again, there are some teams where it's more of a cooperative effort where you're joining an endurance team or something like that. It may be something where you do some damage and you're kind of putting a damper on much more than just one guy's little local speed shop car that he's going to go easily rebuild. If it's a group effort, there may be more involved if there's damage. But
right.
in general, the teams who are smart about it they'll set up a little contract or something like that, or copy and paste it from somebody else that's at least got enough legalese in it to sound convincing. I don't know that I guess there's plenty of lawyers in racing who put out good agreements as far as covering crash damage and consumables, and here's what's included in the arrangement. We've never done it with our own team. We usually only end up having people come drive with us that are just people we know well enough and love and want to hang out with. So it's not usually a big deal for us, but it's something you got to have covered if you're just going to bring in, random people in off the street to drive your car.
So the driver is looking to protect himself or herself from downside should something happen. How do you handle if there's an incident on the track? Sometimes they are, money shift. Okay, you did that. But when cars bump, how are those addressed?
It's just depends on team to team, person to person. I've heard some pretty loose arrangements. I've heard some ironclad things, and maybe it says it doesn't matter if you're in the car, you're at fault because you're in the car. I've seen arrangements like that. Just hey, if your butt's in the seat and lightning strikes and burns the car to the ground, that's your fault. So there are things all the way from that to teams who are just like, hey, we keep video in the car, and if something happens, we'll take a look at it. It's obviously not your fault, and it's not going to be your problem to pay for. I've certainly seen that approach. I mean, that's something that I would do. I would be pretty lenient like that. Be willing to watch the evidence first. If somebody wanted to come back, if I was trying to do this as an enterprise, like there's there are some champ car teams and maybe some lemons teams who supplement their own effort by trying to maybe run a second team or something like that. So then you kind of get into customer service, sort of thinking about it, like, is the customer always right, or am I just going to rail on this guy for messing the car up and never see him again? So that's part of it too. There's plenty of team considerations that go into the arrive and drive side of it too, as well as the driver approaching a team.
All right. So if you're the car owner or the team, you run the team, you're concerned about, you don't want the car being treated like it's the Hertz rental of the weekend.
Right.
But you've also got some responsibility to make sure the car runs.
Yeah. So I think from a team standpoint, if anybody's going to get into our race car, I want to know that it's somebody who can operate it safely. Number one, consistently. Number two, fast, somewhere down around number 20, 30. We don't care. I mean, we're here to have a good time and have a car to go race in the next event. So if somebody comes to drive with us, we're there for the good time. We're not going to be hounding them about their lap times. We'll certainly help if somebody's looking to get faster or something like that. But in general, just our own team, Winsome Racing, is pretty laid back about it. But, there's the team wants to see somebody who's going to be safe, consistent, and fast somewhere down the list. Usually the main concern from everybody I ever talked to is just that they want to be safe. When you kind of get up in a little bit different level, maybe the first question is about lap times. But at the level of, I would say, Lemons and Champ Car and Lucky Dog, I think most team owners and car owners are just primarily concerned with safety. But, and something a driver can do when introducing themselves to a team, if they have some race video that they can show that just demonstrates how they behave on track, that's a big help. I think I found a Lemons ride. I stopped at a rest stop and was just looking for a ride. I just moved back to the East Coast and I wanted to go race at CMP. And so I saw a team that was looking for drivers. I went and found a video of me driving the Tiny Vet out at Series Point, posted that and said, here's who I am. Here's what it looks like when I drive. Would love to come drive your B-Class Honda or whatever it was. And I think 2 exits away, I'd already had a response on a ride. So you want to present yourself in a credible way, and you can find some good opportunities out there. There's often things that happen where somebody plans a race to run with their full local squad, and then somebody's mother-in-law dies, somebody gets divorced, blah, 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 and then I got a spot open. Happens all the time. And also there are sections of the website, like sections of the forums for Lemons, Champ Car, and I'm not sure about the other ones, but usually there's kind of a human resources section looking to hook up drivers with team opportunities and vice versa.
So if you're there's essentially companies that do this. Those, I would think, you have a chance to compete for wins or performance. But if you're doing an arrive and drive with a non, that's not what they do. It's just a race team and you're joining it. You're probably not expecting to get the top of the tip of the spear. Or it depends
it just depends. It depends on how far open your wallet is and who you know and that sort of thing. I think it was last year. There's a Champ Car team called Inactive Racing, INACTIV. Great team to go do this with if you get a chance. Good guys that run a couple of cars that are very competitive. But my friend Blake and I were just like, hey, let's go poach a ride down at that Road Atlanta race. We just kind of wanted to both go run that race and had time. So we looked around and we considered different teams' competitiveness. We weren't really trying to run with anybody way up at the front of the field because those are usually teams that are already pretty booked up. But we knew this team Inactive. I'd seen that they had good results in their class, which is the B class,
right?
In a Champ Car. So I'd seen that they had a race win or two, and they usually look like they had just their stuff together. So we both contacted them and said, hey, can we come run the car? And we showed up down at Road Atlanta. Had one guy who wasn't that great, was another driver, and another kid from Texas who was amazing. And we won our class. So, yeah, wow. Sometimes it works like that. Sometimes you go, hey, I want to kind of poach this one thing and go kind of take this one direction and do a little research and find a team that looks good. And it can pay off. It definitely did that time. We had a great time.
So good way to get to a track you don't go to, good way to do it when you're traveling, good way to meet some new people, no big
Absolutely.
issues.
Great way to have 20 unwanted conversations in the airport about what's that bulbous thing you're carrying around. They're like, why do you have your helmet? So that's fun too. Yeah, but yes, okay. It's a blast. I've done it. I got a chance to go race Las Vegas Motor Speedway and arrive and drive, Watkins Glen, tracks I never would have gotten to. Let's see, Laguna Seca. So, yeah, definitely some stuff I wouldn't have gotten to with my own team and tracks that are on everybody's bucket list. So, yeah, it's a great way to do some motorsports tourism and get to know some people. You might go race with a team and realize it's the team I want to come back with and run with every year.
Cool. Sounds like something we got to look into because sometimes there's a track that you want to go to and it's just not that close and you don't want to pull your car.
Right, yeah, and you guys have dipped your toe into it a little bit with Lucky Dog, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I just, it's something that, like Thunderhill's on my list. It's one of my bucket list tracks. I need to go do that big old monster there. And,
Absolutely. It's a great
y-
course.
that's a long tow from northeastern Pennsylvania to southwestern
Yeah.
California. So, and back.
That's it. And the good news is there's just always somebody willing to rent you a car. Somebody will rent you a car any dang where you go because they're upside down in it, or they've tried to make a business out of this. And like, so there's deals to be had and that sort of thing. There can also be some pretty big downsides to a rapid drive. You want to kind of talk through some of those things to look for?
Sure. Because right now we're all roses so far.
Yeah, it's been pretty rosy. And it's endurance racing. So some of the roses are also covered in feces because it's endurance racing and there's still roses and you're still having a good time, but you're also just thrashing at 3 a.m. That sort of thing. It's not ideal, but you're still doing the thing you showed up to do. Even if you're not out on track making laps, this is what you showed up for. So being aware of that will help you reconcile some difficulties when things aren't going exactly the way you want to within a rapid drive. Like, there's some teams who have something in their agreement where it says, hey, if this car takes the green, you're all paying full money. Doesn't matter if your butt ever gets in there to take a green lap. I brought a car that's going to run a green lap, and we're going to start the race. So you're all committed to that point, and the money is spent by the time we get to the track. Which, for the most part, it really is.
Right.
I mean, you got the consumables cost of race fuel, but for the most part, the money has been spent, the effort has been done to get the car to the track, whether it competes or not. So I kind of understand that aspect, but also we've never done that. If we've had a failure and had people running with us, we've never been like, all right, cough up the full check,
Yeah.
So it's sort of a trade-off. It's not what I prefer, but just be aware that you might show up, spend $1,000 to $100,000 to run a race weekend at any level,
right?
And something just poops the bed and it's all over. So you have to go in without a whole lot of expectations. It might be a little bit different deal if you're trying to run a spec Miata at a club race weekend and you do your first practice and the water pump breaks. Yep. Surely there's going to be 100 Miata water pumps in the paddock and they're going to get you back running. But it can be a whole different story if you're running a 1990 Nissan Stanza as a joke out in Arizona where there's no parts stores. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of manage your expectations and be realistic about what you're going to get when you're doing a rapid drive. I did one. I went to go run a champ car race up in NCM, and the car had fuel pump problems the first day. So I think I got to do a little bit of practice and no green laps. Then on race day, the car started, and no, I think I did some green laps on the first day, but then the failure started on me, so we had to stop. We were having fuel problems, and the next day we started the Sunday race, and we were looking good, like we were running dirt or something. It's like, all right, we got our junk together. It's going to be great. And lap 5, the clutch died. And that was it for the day. So sometimes it happens like that. I had a great time, met a ton of new people I'll race with again. Just wasn't a good weekend for it. I mean, I also spent all the money.
Yep. So I know there's some places that you can go and you basically you get dressed in your driving suit and you drive and you do not touch a wrench.
Right.
And then there's other places where I've heard that the car is yours, treat it as such, and if it breaks, fix it, and everything in between. So is anything more common?
Actually, not even like that. The bookends go a little bit further. So there are some things where you show up and you're not only just going to put your driver's suit on and drive, but they're also going to feed you all weekend. There's a masseuse on staff. Anyway, it's all levels. It just depends on where you are. But typically, the kind of things we're talking about, your agreement might include some snacks, stuff like that, stuff around the cooler. Right? Just grab anything you want the whole weekend is typically what I'll hear.
Right.
Sometimes they have something like lodging might be included in the deal. If hey, we usually get a set of rooms here. If you want to get in on that, it's another $200 or whatever. So all this stuff sort of comes together. Is that answering part of the question?
Yeah. And then there's other teams that I've heard that, you rented the car. Here's my tools. Here's my fluids.
Right.
Here's my
right. So that's the other aspect of it. I was trying to address. So I ran a 24-hour race at a certain track in Virginia with a certain series lately, and I got really excited about this E46 team I was going to run with. It's going to be great because they had done well at Daytona that year. I thought, good deal. These guys are good fun. It's a credible, good car. He was talking about the other guys he was going to get to drive it. It was some other local hot shoes. I was like, all right, this is going to be a good effort. So I sign on, and the guy's like, hey, man, I'm coming all the way up from Florida, and he's bringing a big truck and everything. I was like, okay. He said, can you, he kept asking me all these questions about how to do stuff after I'd already committed and spent a bunch of money. He's like, hey, can you bring all your pit tools and stuff? I'm like, oh, all right. So it's sounding worse and worse as the day gets up. And we get there, and we all practice the car, everything goes fine, and then I was going to start the 24-hour race on the out lap, the lap we're going to go green on. I get up to Oak Tree and the car is dead. Nothing, no input, no switch, no clicks, nothing. I was like, God, Jesus. And it did that to us like 2 more times, like to the point where the series was like, hey, you guys have another failure on track. We're trying to start our flagship race of the year, and you guys keep causing cautions. You're just going to have to go home. So this is how it was going after. This is the race I had spent the most money I've ever spent to go do a ride and drive. I was like, all right, this is a credible effort. I'm going to go hit it with these guys. They're running the right pads, the right tires. Everything sounds right. They sound knowledgeable, but then as the race day approached, the train wrecks got closer and closer. So we were wrenched on that thing the whole time. Nobody had a good time. The car owner would sit on a golf cart and watch us work on it. It was that kind of thing. It was like, ah. On the other hand, the way those kind of things can go well is that the Lemons team I found a ride with on the interstate turned out to be a really good time, and I was able to jump in and wrench sometimes on the car, and it was a lot of fun. Like in this instance, like here's a story sort of from the good side of being a renter. I was driving my first stint in this Honda, and it was getting toward the end, so I'm on the radio with them saying like, hey, I've got this much fuel left. It's probably time to come in pretty soon. And I'm also noticing that the temperature, the water temperature is creeping up. So I talked to them about that. I say, hey, water temperature's coming up too, so a little bit, so I'm going to come on a little early. I come in, and it turns out that these guys had built an aluminum fan shroud to, duct more air to their radiator, keep everything cool. Pretty good idea, right, on a race car?
Depends.
That's right, because also if your fan shroud pierces your radiator, no good. So that's what had happened. So these guys had sprung a pinhole leak in the radiator, but I even paying attention, noticed it. We didn't blow an engine. They were able to go get a brand new radiator. They had one. We dropped it in, and I think overnight I changed the brake pads for them because they were running some junk. I wanted to put Hawk Blues on for Sunday. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's a little bit of give and take. I was like, hey, if you go get the Hawk Blues, I will put them on the car. So in that team, I see them more than 5 years later now, and they're like, oh, that's that guy who wrenched on the car weekend. So you can show up to an arrive and drive and sort of make yourself a legend by just getting in the game. As far as wrenching, you may not have to, but there are plenty of teams who will be grateful if you'll jump in. And I mean, for me, it feels unnatural to be at a race and not pick anything up or work on anything. I'd rather be in the game wrenching than just watching people work. As long as it's something I know how to do, obviously. There are plenty of times where I know it's time for my dumb self to step back and watch real people who know what they're doing work on a car. But if it's if it's hauling fuel jugs or hey, bring all the stuff down to the pit lane, I would say get in the game because every team's gonna love you doing that.
Absolutely. So at the is there like a way to determine how much these racing seats cost per series, or is it something you need to talk to people, or how do you get in the know?
The cheapest arriving drive I've done has been in Lemons.
Mm-hmm.
Champ would be next. I've never trying to think about AER. A little bit more in AER, but also you're there for 3 entire days on the track too, so that can be part of it. They qualify and practice all day Friday and then race Saturday and Sunday. So I don't know. I mean, I think typically you'll find out when you start talking to the team how proud of themselves they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I believe I do. I think that's
and it's okay to go in knowing something about the team without telling them everything you know about it. And then when they say, "Well, hey, we're charging a crazy amount of money," you can go, "I also noticed you never even won a race." I mean. You don't have to be a jerk about it, but if you're trying to negotiate a good deal for yourself to go drive a car that you're excited about driving, then they start kind of blowing smoke up your rear end. You have to go, hey, let's, it's okay. It's okay to assert yourself and trying to find a good ride and a good deal. Because also that will also let you know if these people are jerks and you don't want to be around them.
Yeah. So the main contract is 30 pages, you should probably walk away.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever agreed to run with a team that had like some kind of crazy damage thing. I mean, I also in general am not wrecking cars, so I don't pay a whole lot of attention. But yeah, I mean, if somebody takes you out, you have to kind of know what the deal is. But I've walked away from a couple where some team was so proud of their car that I mean, sure, you may have spent a ton of money, you may have put tens of thousands of dollars into this car as you run along and raced it and wrecked it and you screwed it up over the years, but it doesn't mean so the car is you might value the car at $50,000 and you've been racing it forever and you put all this stuff through it. But by the time you turn around and try to sell it, ain't nobody going to give you $50,000 for your 85 Corolla that you've got really, crazy suspension geometry on and doesn't really work that good. You know what I mean? Like it's
sometimes it's dialed in.
Right. So if you see something that seems a little unrealistic as far as a team's estimate of how much their stuff is worth, it's totally cool to move on. I've done it.
All right. Is there anything else we need to know, or?
I think that's enough. I've covered most of the horror stories I could think of and most of the real fun stuff I've had. It's endurance racing. It's all as a wash, whether it's your own car or somebody else. You're going to have some really high highs and you're going to have some pretty miserable lows, and it's all going to balance out to the positive if you're still around doing it. But yeah, just be aware. It's just like kind of showing up and staying at somebody else's house. You're still going to take a shower and go to the bathroom and stuff.
Good for a rookie person or no? You just
have
to be upfront and let people know,
But there are plenty of teams. I mean, with Lemons and Champ Car, it can be your first day ever at the racetrack, first time ever sitting in a race car, and you're good to go, green when the race goes green. So, I mean, that tells you that there are a lot of people who are willing to let brand new people, to the racetrack drive their cars, and there are teams who are willing to rent you a seat. They'll just typically lay down some pretty strong guidelines about how they want you to behave, and if this, then this, and conditionals, and that's been my experience. But also, I don't think I ever did it as a rookie, but there are plenty of people who will let you do it. And if you're waiting around till I got to wait around till I got this race car done, I got to wait around till I get this. I mean, it's a good way to kind of short circuit that kind of thinking. It's just jump on the forum, find a ride at the track you want to go run, see what's up. Because also, you might be fantasizing about race car driving your whole life. You might show up to it and go, I don't like this. Or you might show up and think, I really dig this part of being at the track, but I didn't like this. So you may find out that you don't want to build your own race car, but you might want to join a team and be their tire expert or something.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But you should definitely, if it's your first time on the track, you should let them know before you get to the track.
Absolutely. They're going to want to know. And like I said, everybody starts somewhere, and there's plenty of teams who are totally okay with that. You just want to be honest with them, and you want to be receptive to their instructions, because if you start screwing it up, it'll be the last time you run with them.
Pretty much. All right. Arrive and drive. I think I know a little bit about it.
Okay.
Enough to get myself in trouble.
Drivers. Yeah.
We will try. Thank you, sir.
Dominating with Dawson.
Hello, Ben. We're back again. We were going to talk about a new to you track. When you're new to a track, what should you do and what shouldn't you do? Because most people are intimidated to go on a track their first time, and they're trying to be overly polite or concerned about sticking out. And, you being a more experienced driver, what do you want from the guy who's coming or the girl who's coming to their first or first few track events?
The absolute first thing that a new driver should do if you're new to a series or new to a track is to attend a driver meeting, and if they have a rookie event or a rookie meeting after that, maybe a track walk or something like that, everybody I know, Lemons, I know Champ Car does a rookie event after the general drivers meeting or sometime before the race starts. So it just helps you get oriented to the series and their specific rules. So that's definitely the first priority, is to make sure that you attend those sort of things, because they're going to let you know. Not every series has the same kind of rules or expectations for behavior on track, and that's the place to get it dialed in.
Right. What about from a driving approach? Because
Sure.
I know some people are, I'm a little slow, so I'm going to stay out of the lane or the line.
Yeah. You definitely are expected to stay on the normal line. So whatever would be the considered the racing line, even if you feel like you're going slow, stay on that line and do what you're going to do. Don't step out of line or get out of anybody's way, because the people that are coming faster to pass you, they're going to be kind of getting into that place where you were going to go if you're going to get out of the way. So, for example, this happened to me at a Lemons race. I was driving a car that was, I think it was the fastest car on the track at the time. So I was passing a lot of people. This is at Carolina Motorsports Park, and there's a big kind of carousel up at the top end of the track, and the carousel turns to the right, so everybody is exiting, tracking out to the left, and I was coming up to pass a car, and I'm on the inside to the right. This car should have been tracking out to the left, so I'm kind of headed toward what should be a clearing space as the car is leaving. So as I'm pulling alongside this car, I just see the front wheels turn sharp to the right where my door is. So they hit me hard in the left corner, just turning really hard to get out of my way. I guess they saw me coming, and I was going faster than they thought. So by the time they thought to get out of my way, I was already next to them. So it knocked the whole left corner off the car. It spun it around, knocked us out for the whole weekend. So that was tough. And it turned out that this was a driver who had not attended the rookie meeting and didn't know that the expectation was to just run the normal line and let the faster drivers work their way around. And that's pretty much universal for every HPDE or racing series is they expect you to stay online. So be predictable, stay on the line, don't jump out of anybody's way.
Right, and don't try to be overly polite. And
yeah, that was a really hard wreck when it happened to me. I was like, I was up in the air for a second. I was in the spin cycle. I thought, man, that was rough. So it can have some pretty bad consequences if you don't kind of just maintain general normal behavior on track.
Okay, be polite, be predictable.
Yes,
stay in line. But the other thing that is helpful that I remember when I was first doing it was pointing by.
Absolutely, and it's not required. I mean, and
but it helps.
If you're it definitely helps in a racing situation, and it is required in an HPDE setting in some groups. So, but it's just in general. If you see somebody coming, you're like, I'm obviously now going to fight this car that just drew down on me from half a straightaway back in like in a matter of a lap. So just let them know where you want them to go. Even if it's going to be a little bit different than normal. Maybe you're thinking about something else that's coming up where you're like, I like to go through this corner a certain way, so I'm going to point them by a way they might not expect. But if you do it, boldly and quickly enough, that approaching driver might see it and go, okay, cool, I'll do that since they're working with me. So it just helps the flow of traffic. I mean, an endurance race is a cooperative event. I mean, everybody's trying to go the most laps and win, but it's a whole different thing than a sprint race. You're out there running these things together.
Right. So first time person who's going to point by, left is always easy. You just stick your hand out the left side, straight.
Sure.
Point to where you want them to go. Right.
In general, you want to point the passing car toward the inside of what the next coming corner is. So,
okay.
You want to point them toward the apex ahead of you, pretty much.
Okay. And then pointing to the right is either inside the car or out over the hood, over the roof. Do you prefer either one?
Well, if you're running with a window net, you're not going to be able to pull it off as well. Right. But yeah, if you had no window net, you can do it. A big bold gesture outside of the car is a lot more visible to the approaching driver. And also, I should say this about point buys in an HPDE session. If you're out there, maybe it's your first time at a track and you're in the car with an instructor. You may realize, hey, I've got 4 or 5 cars lined up behind me, but I'm really just trying to keep the car on the track. It can be, that dire of a situation. So if you're an approaching driver and you're out there, and you see 2 helmets in the car ahead of you, it's likely that the instructor and the student are familiarizing themselves with the track, and they see you, they're going to give you a point by. But it's important not to get too impatient at an event like that, because they paid their money to be there and they paid their money to learn just like everybody else. So you have to be patient, waiting for a point. You can't rush it.
Okay. And the one other thing that I learned recently, well, relatively recently, which I thought was nice, was when somebody would tap their rear view mirror to let us know that they saw me, as opposed to, hey, does this guy know I'm back here? It's always good. And so over communicate, I think, would be what the general topic.
Yeah, absolutely. The culture down at the place I go the most, the VR, is a big wave, in between the 2 seats. And a lot of times I do it for the student. If I'm in the car with the student, they're really busy, and I'll let the car, as the instructor, I'll let the other car you see, and we're gonna work them through it. But you only should give a point by when you're comfortable doing it. If you realize, like, hey, if I'm gonna give a point by, in a weird place where I'm all crossed up or I'm trying to shift gears, if it just doesn't make sense, just wait and do it where you can definitely get your arm out the window and still, be comfortably in charge of your car. Because, you don't want to endanger yourself to give somebody a point.
Right. Or them.
I've seen it happen. I always say that because I've seen it happen.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So first time you're out there, be consistent, be predictable, and communicate when you can safely. Thank you.
And don't try anything crazy. Work your way up to in the brake zone. So, if it feels like I could probably break it to 3, start at the 4, work your way up. Don't go for the goal because there's no goal.
Yeah, the scouts that are there, they know it's your first time. It's okay. They'll wait for your second time. So.
Yeah, the main respect you're going to get at a track day is not wrecking your junk.
Yes, or somebody else's.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
All right.
People keep talking to me about these apexes. I've got early apexes. I've got late apexes. I've got geometric apexes. I've got school line apexes. I've got race line apexes. I've got wet line apexes. I've got Mustang apexes. I've got Porsche apexes. I've got all these apexes. How many apexes are there, and what do they mean?
The apex is the point of the corner that you want to hit to be the fastest way around any corner. So, depending on the shape of the corner, the apex might be near the beginning of the corner, right at the middle, or near the end, right?
Yeah. So that would be early, middle, or late, or geometric, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What about this school line apex?
What do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a conservative apex that they teach at HPDs and racing schools to not scare the instructor who's in the right seat.
So with you're saying that there's a methodology that's taught as far as track driving that's just with an eye toward keeping everybody safe and minimizing risk.
Typically a late apex.
Right. That's what I was going to agree with. Is that usually hear folks geared toward a late apex. And that's a pretty good, safe HPDE high performance driving method. It's not something that I cleave to. In my mind, my goals, as far as I'm always thinking of things in terms of being an amateur endurance racer, which we are, and I'm always just thinking about traffic, like what approach is going to help me and be most advantageous to me in traffic. And that's always, in my mind, getting the apex and the rotation done in the sequence of corners as soon as I can. So hopefully I can get the wheel open and get on the throttle before the people around me so that I can pass people. I'm always trying to make my passes on the way out of a corner if I can.
Okay. So avoid the dive bomb and take them on the next.
Right. Because, a dive bomb is just, I don't have an unlimited body shop budget.
Yes.
And also I've got kids who depend on me. So I'm not trying to dive bomb everybody. But I can usually get it done just as effectively and safer on the way out of the corner because people be sleeping and not good at this. So
with more of it in your control. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, because for the most part, like if I got to get it done on the way into a corner, I will if I feel safe about it. But if I need to wait, it's an endurance race. If I need to wait instead of passing somebody on the way in, and I can just give it a second and try to get it on the way out, what is the difference, right?
Well, that 1 second could be the difference between nothing.
Right.
So school line apexes are typically late. What about race line apexes? Are they just the fastest way?
Yeah, in general, I would generalize and say that people who race are competitive enough that they're going to figure out what's working well for their car in traffic, and the apex is wherever they can make a pass go. whatever the fastest way they can get around with their cars. I don't think that there's it's not a situation where, okay, the school line is a known quantity, and we know that's like a kind of standard late apex, and then to turn around and say, okay, that correlates to a race line, which is, not a late apex, but exactly on the apex. I would say that the race line is anywhere. The race line is anywhere that works and you're passing people.
Would it be fair to say that generically it's probably closer to the geometric than what they would call the school line apex?
Yeah. For the most part, you would see a racer doing a late apex if it made sense geometrically, or if it was going to work out for a pass that time around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
they
also
have different goals, right?
Right. Like I think the goal of a DE is to kind of have a universal approach that lets everybody have fun, feel like they're going pretty fast, but also is like, all right, hey, you're going to come off this apex late, and you're likely to be at an angle that's not going to put you in a bunch of trouble at the exit, and you know what I mean? Like it's a whole different thing than what we're doing. And I don't disparage. I think there's a lot of value to teaching people how to drive any way they can, as far as better driving than the highway.
Sure, absolutely. All right, last one. There's this wet line apex. I've heard.
Oh, we should go back really quickly to talk about early apexes.
Oh, sure.
Have you ever heard of what pitfalls might come with early apexes? So with an early apex, if you're trying to get rotated too early, you might run out of room on the exit. You might run off. So
yeah,
so it's something else to think about.
A chronic early apexer. When I first started. That's right. Yes, I have adjusted many, many times on my decreasing amount of track as I was leaving the building.
Yeah. Like, whoa, where is the track going?
Why is the track green?
But also, you always hear me harp on this podcast about early apexes in my own driving. I definitely am always skewed toward that ideal in my own driving, as I'm trying to get the apex and stuff done early, because I'm always headed out with the goal of making it back to the gas and getting the wheel straight sooner than the people who are near me on track.
Absolutely. What about the wet line? Does it have like a typical apex, or is it just kind of, it is what it is, and we find it out, and every turn doesn't matter because it depends on how much rain, depends on a whole bunch of stuff?
No, it definitely matters. Like you should be fighting for all the grip you can get during the rain. So it's just, if you settle back into a comfortable line in the rain, you're probably safe, but you're also going to be slow. Like if you want to fight for position in the rain, it's going to mean fighting for traction and fighting for where the apex is, like you're talking about. So, if you're used to running across the painted curbs at Coda, for example, like there's painted curbs all over that place.
Yeah.
And if that's your line all around the track, it's likely that if it's raining, that's going to be not the line that you can take because it's going to be really slippery on those curbs. So your line might be a whole lane off of what your typical line might be, might just put you running right next to the curbs instead of over them. Does that make sense? So your rain line,
slippery.
Yeah. So people talk about running your rain line like a lane off, and you think about like, oh, let's go put me in the middle of the track. Well, might not be if your typical apex was running across the curbs, then the rain line might be you just running right next to the curbs, not necessarily square in the middle of the track. So just think about that. You like a lot of times you want to stay off of painted apexes that you would usually use in the rain once it's wet. There are some crazy people who will try to use the paint to help their car rotate and maintain a similar speed that they would run in the dry.
Sure.
But that is playing cricket at a pretty high level. So don't do that until you get really good at this stuff. But yeah, you can use the painted stuff to help you rotate. But that's black belt shit.
You know what I was coincidentally doing, and I think it applies, is I was watching some of the Grid Life GLTC events, and they had one in 2020. A few weeks back, they were at Mid Ohio, and on Saturday it was dry, and on Sunday it was wet. And for those of you playing at home, Mid Ohio in the wet,
woo,
is like butter.
But not the kind of butter you put on the toast, but the kind of butter you would smear all over the bottom of the shower if you're trying to kill your spouse, right?
Yes, exactly. So if you want to see the difference between the dry line and the wet line, it was very apparent, and the carnage that ensued was oftentimes pretty funny.
That sounds really like something that's worth posting in the show notes.
We could do that if somebody knew how to do that. We got to find that guy.
Yeah,
it'll be there.
I definitely want to see that now.
It's pretty cool. So Grid Life GLTC event. I want to say it was in September or October of 2020. Mid Ohio Saturday was 1 and 2, and Sunday was 3 and 4, and the difference is dramatic.
Sounds pretty cool. Grid Life is something that really kind of snuck in there on me. It took me a year or two to figure out, like, oh, this is a real thing. There's races, and people are super excited about this stuff.
They are, and it looks like fun. We're going to try to get to one, hopefully with this. Hopefully we'll be allowed to resume normal activities next year. So anyway, there's lots of apexes. Make sure you hit them.
Hit those apexes. And, I'm in the car with people all the time, and they're like, hey, did I do pretty good? Like, yeah, I mean, you were driving your car, but we were 3 feet off every apex. Like, yeah, but I did good, right? And I'm like, no. Not if you don't hit those apexes, you ain't doing nothing. Like, hit the apexes. That matters.
And I think I was talking to Vicky and Jen about that. They were hitting the apexes, but missing them by a foot or foot and a half. And it was
hitting them?
That's what I mean. They were hitting what they were aiming at, but what they were aiming at wasn't enough. And I tried to explain to them that little bit matters.
It feels crazy to feel like you're driving through a curb. I'm like, I'm going to just jump this thing. But that's a lot of times that's the difference between putting your car in the right spot to be fast or being near where you need to be fast.
And inches, literally inches, even less than inches, matter.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff to dial in as you get your car placement stuff together. Like, yeah, I'm nailing this. And then like, you're right. Somebody might ride with you and be like, oh, you're close to nailing it, but you're not quite there yet. So it's all small adjustments, but it's important to hit the apexes, I think.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If you're trying to run the fast lap times and win the races, making those apexes counts.
Yep. And I can't count the number of times people have told me, hey, use all the track. You paid for it.
True. Yeah. And that's true. I'm going to use all the track plus some if I can get away with it. But
absolutely.
Yeah, you want to use every bit of paved surface to your geometrical advantage. Even if you're coming out of the corner and the last corner didn't go well and you're just trying to figure it out how to kind of get back onto your line, use every bit of the track to your advantage for sure.
And if you see the curbing on the inside or the outside of a turn, and you see a big dirt spot, or even better, if you see a big gouge of it missing, you know exactly what the racers are doing.
and you know exactly what to stay away from.
Yeah, don't hit the divot, but they hit the divot because that's where they're aiming at, and they missed.
Yeah.
So you want to be out there, not all the way out there, but out there, or else you're not hitting the apex.
That's a good point. You can usually ride around the track and see like, oh, okay, here's where the guys who are hitting it really hard are going. It may not be exactly where you want to put your car, because also you never want to be near the end of a curbing section, but sometimes it's very revealing where you're like, oh, okay, why are there so many tire marks over here?
Did it one time.
Yeah, it's pretty miserable. Like if you ever watch race videos in it where I'm driving and I have to reach up and adjust the mirror, it's because I've done one of those.
Yeah. I did it at Mid Ohio. It was quite painful.
Yeah.
But that's the limit that you're trying to get to. When you say hit the apex, you are talking about it could be all the way onto the curb. It could be right next to the curb. It could be way onto the curb. There's some places it's a half the car onto the curb or more.
Yeah. Yep. And also there are also places where there's a curb there. The track put a curb there, thinking that's where people would need to go.
Yep.
Just didn't work out. So there are some places where there's a curb over there, but the real line is not anywhere near the curb.
Right. But in general, most of the curbs are there because that's where they got tired of replacing dirt.
Exactly right.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we were at a driving event a few weeks back, and there was this phrase that came up that, when you get in trouble and you start to lose the car, both feet in.
Okay. I've heard that.
Yep. I thought it was pretty clear. However, some of the people that were there, when they heard it, they said, "Okay, if I'm having trouble and I'm starting to lose the car and I'm going to spin and I'm not
like
quite
NASCAR.
Sure."
Like NASCAR, you nail the gas, get the rear tire spinning, and then basically it's going to spin around the way you want it to go, and then you get back going, right? NASCAR,
nope.
Nail it.
They misunderstood and thought that both feet in meant curl your feet up into a ball.
Yeah, you bring your feet in as you assume the fetal position like that.
Exactly. So I thought, as a public service to anyone else who has this as misunderstanding, perhaps we could go into what are people saying when they mean both feet in, and what does it do for you?
Wait. Are you for real?
It's
people thought that?
I can tell you who it is, but I'll do it off camera.
So am I supposed to say what the feet are supposed to be doing?
Yep.
You'll be okay. Yeah. If you get in trouble on the racetrack and your car starts to spin out, put your foot on the clutch and put your foot on the brake. Come to a stop.
That's both feet, right? That's both feet.
I got 1 foot on the foot, 1 foot on the brake. I got 1 foot on the clutch. Like, what else would you be doing? Hold on. I got to get my knees up to my chest because I am assuming the fetal position.
So perhaps it was a misunderstanding of the terminology, but
yeah, if you're in trouble, bring your car to a stop. If it has a clutch, pop your foot on the clutch so that your car doesn't, engine rotate backwards. Anyway, you stop the car safely, and if that involves a clutch, and definitely doesn't involve the brake, no matter what you're driving.
Yes.
Come to a stop, hopefully off the side of the track. Use whatever pedals are involved. And once you've stopped your vehicle, look around to whatever corner or station that you can see. That person will direct your next actions. But put your foot on the brake. Like, even if you stall the car, if it's a clutch or whatever, definitely the 1 foot that matters is put your foot on the brake. And if the car hopefully, as you put the clutch in, and the car is going to, hopefully, if it's in a spot where it's going to roll backwards off the track, let it roll backwards off the track. Let it get off the track, get off the racing surface if you can. Like, kind of feel where the car is headed. And if it's in a position to roll off the track safely, kind of off into the grass, let it do that. Because you don't want to be sitting on the racing line with cars coming behind you.
And in case somebody listening hasn't done this before, you will be amazed at how quickly that car comes to stop if you do this.
Yeah. So just That's the idea when you need to just your car is out of control. You need to grab it, put it back in control, put your foot on the brake, put your foot on the clutch, let it roll to where it's going to settle. Find a corner station that will safely guide you back into competition or driving.
Yep.
And if you don't have a clutch, like I don't know why you would not have a clutch if you're driving a race car, but you know, it's a joke, people. Thank you. When you say both feet in and you don't have a clutch, that doesn't mean gas and brake. It just means,
that means put both feet on the brake pedal.
yes, exactly.
Both feet in on the brake pedal.
Yes, not the gas pedal. Stay off the gas pedal. Just in case, because I figured if they had misunderstood it the other way, I didn't want them, hammering the gas pedal and the brake pedal. But
that's right. And also, as an aside, but not really an aside, this is for all of us in 2020. I have rediscovered the fetal position for napping. So don't use it on the track, but I've really been kind of pulling my whole body together for a nice, comforting nap position.
you know why you do that?
Tell me.
Because you don't get enough dominating with Dawson's. You need 2 per episode.
That's right. Let's start ratcheting this up. Let's do it. Let's call an intifada on being slow.
There we go. Very well, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Dominating with Dawson.
So, Ben, I have a question.
Hit me.
Due to recent events that we are experiencing, this question is kind of important to me now. What do you look for when you buy a car or you are working on a car that is just coming into the shop, like another person's car? What are some of the key areas? I believe you're a Miata driver.
Yeah, I've been a Miata guy for a while, but yeah, I think
just some
some real key basic stuff.
Yes, just some big key basic stuff when you're purchasing a car to convert into a race car.
Gotcha. So let's all remember that Ben is not a car guy or a smart guy at all. So usually my default answer is to have somebody who knows more about the cars than I do come with me to look at a car. Like I made my teammate Hans come check out a car like in a monsoon in a Target parking lot when I needed to buy one. But there's some basic stuff that you can see. Like you definitely want to do things like with the BMW or any car like that, open up the trunk, open up everything you can look at, see how the doors shut and make sure the doors shut nicely. If one door shuts weird, ask if the vehicle's been wrecked. Bill's got a question.
I got a tip from a pro.
Yeah, let's hear
if
it.
you open and close the door and you hear like rattling sounds, like broken glass, then the car got stolen or wrecked.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another thing people do is to kind of be subtle about it. They bring a magnet that won't mar or mess up paint and walk around with your little magnet, kind of making sure that everything that should be metal is metal. That's a good way to find out if the car's been wrecked and maybe has some non-metal body filler added. It's, a body shop does a good job. You can't tell it's been wrecked. So if that's important to you, then walk around and you can see what's metal and what's not. Another thing to do is just to look for how the different panels of the body fit together. If anything looks too pinched or like too big of a gap, that would raise a question for me. What about you guys? Is that something to look for?
Well, I definitely try not to have the James Bondo.
Right.
That's a good thing.
I'd want to see it. I'd want to see it run if it's being sold as a running car. Like I want to, whatever the car is supposed to do, I want to see it do every single thing. Like if the windows work, if the AC works, if everything that the seller is purporting that the car will do, I want to see all of its purported performance before I'm going to buy it. I don't want to take anybody at their word.
I always like talking to the person like about nothing, just to get a feel. Because you can tell if they're, a car guy, a car girl, or if they're kind of slimy or somewhere in between. And, if it's
I'd rather buy a bad car than have to talk to somebody any extra time. I'd rather just take a bad car.
What about checking frame points? Obviously, see if there's any pinching or any weak spots is probably another one.
Sure.
Correct?
Would you do that? Would you do that like in a parking lot or like a grass field? Or what do you think? You maybe negotiate with the seller to see if you could take it to a place and get it up on a lift?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would. I've done that before.
Yeah.
before I bought a used car. But I know Bill, what he does is he has shipped cars across country from drier areas, so we don't have to really worry so much about rust.
Right.
And
You buy a California car.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have a couple of
Well,
those.
The frame thing, usually we've been buying a lot of the same type of car recently, and I'm getting to know what to look for and what not to look for. So on the BMW, I know where to look, and I know what to look for, and some of these we're planning on making into race cars. So the cage is going to be fortifying it, but you still don't want to put it together on a piece of, corroded iron. You want some structure there, and you can in a parking lot or in a field just take a peek under there, and if it looks soft or it looks like it's got holes where it should be solid rails, or you kind of I've got nothing against grabbing it and giving it a little squeeze and making sure it's metal.
You can probably pull up the carpet a little bit in a few places to make sure. I mean, in a BMW, you definitely want to look in the little pockets down by the trunk where the you get the trunk floor, and then it goes down to a pocket where the battery is. BMWs are of a certain age or any age. That's a place that's worth looking at, and look from underneath too. Look from underneath and see if you see any places that look a little rusty. And like Bill said, you can poke your finger around and kind of see. But also, don't be ashamed to. If it's a car you're pretty sure you're going to buy, yank up a little carpet inside the trunk or inside the car, and just stick it back down. But I would do that. I wouldn't be ashamed to do that, just to see if there's rust up under there.
So right after we, notice the after. Right after we bought the Boxster, I saw a video on, I think it was on YouTube, or it might have been Wheeler Dealers, but anyway, they're like the key to a Boxster is not to look for, and this is at a high level if you don't have a lot of time or get a pre-inspection, was to look at the seats and the dash. And if the seats are trashed and the dash doesn't look good, then the car in general is probably not going to be good, because the rust isn't really prevalent because a lot of people just use them in the summer. So you don't get a lot of the winter wear and tear. So then I remembered the car that I bought, which had the absolutely trashed seats, like horrible seats. And I'm sitting there going, well, hopefully that's just, an old wives' tale. And no.
Now you're Boxster, and now you're Boxster free.
I am Boxster free. Yes. Only lost a lot of money on it, but that's fine. It's gone. So, it's part of the fun. So this applies to race cars and to regular street cars, and applies to HPDE cars, whatever you plan on doing it with. You want to get a good deal, but you want to be fair to both parties, and basically you want to make sure to kind of get rid of the nightmare cars and try to get yourself a good to above average car, and start with that, because it takes a lot of money to fix neglected car.
Right. For me, the term doing your due diligence is one of my least favorite things to think about or carry through. But if you want to end up with the best kind of car to be a platform for what your next motorsports goal is, it's worth doing some due diligence and examining every aspect of it that you can grasp at the time and that you're able to examine before you make the choice. Because a lot of us listening and probably and talking have probably been hurt at one point or another by just kind of going with something that you hope is going to be great, and then you find out it's got a million problems, and it's really just the bane of your existence, and it makes you want to quit doing everything. You just want to huddle up into a fetal position to stop doing any sort of racing or thinking. You just want to just hunker down. You know what I mean? We've all been there, right?
Yep.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, I think the best you can do is do the best you can, and sometimes it'll bite you later, but it's part of the fun,
part of the learning,
or not That's fun.
Right. Yeah, we're all training.
Exactly.
Forever training.
That training thing.
You will never stop training.
And I think it's safe to say that we would love to hear any tips listeners have about looking at cars and what to examine, because I'm pretty sure the amount of stuff I don't know about checking out a car could fill up volumes. So I'd love to hear some more great ideas.
We do have a guest coming on, so if we're going to have a guest covering this topic, if anybody has any questions, or it could be generic to all cars, or it could be specific to a type of car, we'd love to have the question.
I love it.
That would be fantastic. So Jen, You look endlessly thrilled about this one.
I know nothing about buying a car. That's why I couldn't even ask you a question. Like I don't even know anything about it. I mean, it looks good. Maybe, I don't know.
Shiny.
Shiny. I don't know.
Well, I crawled over this last car that the one that we are experiencing trouble with, and I noticed stuff, but I wasn't sure about the degree of what I was looking at and how much I should be worried about it. But until we got a little further into it, I'm like, oh, that's what I was looking at, and yes, that is not good. But it'll be very interesting when we have our next guest that comes on to go over such things.
Mm-hmm. Be fun.
Yep.
Very well. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Dominating with Dawson.
Okay, Ben, we're here. We're at a new track. Hopefully you've done a little bit of homework. Maybe we get into that as well. But how do you get used to or familiarize yourself with a new to you track?
Okay, so like it's your first session and you're out there for the first lap, right?
Yes.
So it's your first time out there. It's likely it's a race. Definitely going to have at least one yellow lap. But usually the very first HPD session on the weekend, they'll do the same thing. And you use that as a time to do a little recon. The very first thing you have to do when you get onto a track, sort of observe what general direction the track is going. But very first is to observe where all the corner stations are, and sort of just wave at the workers to make sure there's somebody in there. You might be driving by one that's not manned. You want to pay attention to which ones are staffed or which ones have a worker in them. That's the first priority. Is that what you do, Phil?
Well, I do a little bit of recon at home, hopefully.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought we were talking about at the track. Yes, we can definitely go to talk about the at-home recon too, because I do a lot of that.
So what would you consider your pre-race, pre-visit homework?
I really love going to a new track for the first time. Like I love to for the first time I ever touch a tire to a track, for it to be like under green and I'm jumping in an endurance stint that's already in competition. That's not what everybody likes, but I really like that. But
that may not be the best for a newbie.
Right. But before I do that, I will have at least gone on to iRacing a bunch of times and tried to learn the track if it's in there. One time I raced at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with what was formerly Chump Car, and iRacing had didn't have the exact configuration they were going to race, but I could race one section and one section, kind of piece it together, except I was missing a couple of connectors. You know what I mean? So I pieced together parts to Roval that they were going to use. But I did that, and by the time my stint was over, we had a 4-lap lead. So I call it pretty successful. I did the same thing with Laguna Seca. I had never raced there. I jumped in. I think I was the second driver in the car in a 6-hour race, and I think we ended up running third. So to me, it's really fun. But I did a ton of iRacing, and I'll watch as much credible video as I can find. Like it's so hard to find car videos that are worth watching. But if I can find one where it's a good driver, it's from if the video is not from somebody's front bumper or from their hood or something like that. I want to be able to see the driver working the car. But if I can find a video of a good credible driver racing a car that's similar to what I'm going to race, it's worth the time to watch a bunch of video, because they're going to be approaching turns in a way that makes sense for the kind of car that I'm going to race. If I'm going to go race a Miata, it's not going to do me a ton of good to go watch somebody race an MR2 or a Porsche 911.
Prototype, or
yeah. So I think it's important to watch something that's going to represent what you're going to do when you get to the track. And definitely do as much iRacing or sim time as you can.
Right. So now we're at the track. Hopefully we know which turn is a left and which turn is a right.
Right.
So first thing we go out and we learn, I believe we want to know where the flag stations are.
Exactly. Definitely. Because those are the people that are going to be watching out for you. So you have to know where they are, and you want to be sort of keyed in to naturally be paying attention to them once you get going.
Okay, so then from knowing, left turn, right turn, and flag stations, what would be your approach to learning how to go on the track, not only safely, but quickly?
I mean, the very quickest way is, if you're lucky, you're going to find somebody who has a similar car to you that you can maybe keep up with a little bit, that's been there before, and you can kind of follow somebody around and see what they're able to get away with in this corner, this corner, this corner. And that's a real kind of quick way to kind of cheat your way to competence. But but if you don't have that, if you're going out there, all by yourself the first time, you just kind of have to feel your way around. If you're turning into a corner and you turn so late that you almost run off the other side of the track by the time you're trying to track out, you realize like, okay, I'm probably gonna need to back that turn-in point up a little bit. But it's trial and error. And if you're somebody who's got some experience, it's pretty quick to a good time. What was you had a guest who was saying that, who was quoting Nigel Mansell as saying, if you can't sit at the track close to it by your third lap at a new track, you're just not going to be anybody. So it's not quite that extreme, but if you've got some experience, a lot of stuff will come together and start to remind you, like, oh, this reminds me of turn 7 at VIR or something like that. You'll find something that you'll find other reference points to it.
So when you're approaching the track for the first time, are you trying to get fast at every turn all at once? Or are you trying to pick a couple and expand the numbers? Or let's say there's Road Atlanta, there's 12 turns. Are you just picking the critical few and then work on the rest, or some of them you just get and you just work on them one by one? Or
if you're somebody who's already fairly good at this, you're going to see some sections of the track like, okay, this was pretty obvious. And so I end up focusing on the parts that I have a harder time getting. But yeah, ultimately I want to catch it all at one time. Like hopefully I'm picking each one up as I go. I'm not necessarily, if there's a turn that's hard, like say turn 12 at Road Atlanta is really scary, and it takes a lot of time to build. You're gonna have to kind of work up to it, but so I'll end up putting more of my focus on a turn like that. That's also an important turn because it leads onto the straightaway. So
right,
gonna affect your lap time in a bigger way. So yeah, I mean, I'll focus on what I think are trouble spots for me, but hopefully as I'm doing that, I'm getting faster everywhere. Pushing.
All right, let's say there's a turn that's causing you a problem. Are you going to be looking at moving your turn-in point or your brake point or brake release point, or moving your apex? What's your kind of philosophical approach to dialing in a turn, a specific turn?
I don't know, Bill. Do you think it's a better approach for me to be trying to change one thing at a time, or are you trying to change just a few things and just try a whole different approach every time I show up?
Well, I mean, for me, it's always, wow, that didn't feel good, and then trying to figure out what it was and not blow the next turn. So I always have a predisposition towards either an early turn in or a too early apex. So those are the two that I try to subtract out and think, how do I get to where I want to be, how I want to be, and then work myself into how do I get there.
So you already know if it's not feeling good. Here's a couple of prime suspects I'm going to look at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me too, I only asked that leading question because I was going to say if I'm having trouble with the corner, if I feel like I'm having to brake and then drive up to the apex, I'm braking too early. I mean, there's a fairly infinite number of things you could be doing wrong going into a corner, but usually I hope I'll have a feel for when I'm not getting right. So the next time I come around, I'll try the one thing I think I'm doing. So if I thought I was braking too early, then I'm having to drive up to the apex. Next time I'm just going to try one different thing, which would be I'm going to try half a brake marker up into the turn further. And maybe if I see that takes me right to the apex with the right kind of speed I'm supposed to have, then I'll start working on the next thing about the tracker or about that set of corners that's not working well.
Okay. So I've got a dumb idea, and I don't know what I figure I can do this with you. So everybody always talks, especially when you're on an endurance racing team, you've got 3 or 4 people, 5 people, 6 people even, using the same car. And when you communicate, like your braking point, let's say you're braking at the 3 marker and your turn-in points wherever, doesn't matter.
It's totally unreliable.
Right. So what I was thinking, and this could be a dumb idea or not a dumb idea, is to kind of standardize the communication. If I put a thin line on the windshield, on the right-hand side of the windshield, and when that marker crosses that line, everybody's going to have the same angle. And then that way we'd know when the 3 marker crosses that line, we'd all be kind of similar. Now, is that a
But then you're going to be having everybody trying to pin their braking on the exact brake marker point. Like, boom, at the brakes, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, some people think the 3 marker is where they first can see it. Some people think the 3 marker is where it's right next to you.
It's totally subjective. Yeah, the way to know it is to actually hook up some data and look at it and compare it. Don't like do some janky stuff like that. I mean, that might work, but it sounds crazy to me. No, data. Get data. If you're really that worried about it, figure out what you're actually doing.
I know it's hard to imagine me overthinking things, but it was just a thought. I also had this other
use everything that your aim solo is telling you.
You know what I was thinking too? I was thinking if we put a line across where your eye line is in the car, that way
And I would never look at that.
That way, you keep your eyes up. You don't look below the line. But all right, fine.
My eyes would assimilate the line, and I would never see it after a while.
All right, I got one more. So I'm at a track. First time. There's always one of the difficulties for me is not the geometric line, but how do you know when you want to throw a turn away or when you want to have, linking turns? Like, I don't know if you've been to pit race or not, but there's a section there where you got to link the turn, so you end up giving away the left-handers to maximize the right-handers, or it might be the other way. I haven't been there.
Sure, yeah.
How would you know how to do that or feel how to do that when you're relatively new to the track and you?
Yeah, I mean, the most important corners are the ones that are going to have the biggest payoff, the biggest yield. So, a really important corner is going to be one that leads onto a long straightaway. So, if you're able to exit that corner 5 miles an hour faster than the guy next to you, then you're going to have more top speed by the end of the straightaway. It's not going to be a question of who's going to be there in the next corner first. So, those are the ones that are the biggest priorities. So, an example of that is like a oak tree at VRs. There's kind of two bends into oak tree. So you kind of there's an oblique angle and there's a really sharp angle that puts you on the straightaway. So different parts can take that different ways, that first angle. So you'll see a guy in Viper come rim right around that thing. Everybody ends up at the final apex the same way, pretty much at the same place, but getting there for the first set of bends really car dependent, and it really doesn't matter because you're all going to kind of hit the same minimum at the really sharp point before you get to on the big straightaway. So that's sort of an example how you completely throw away that first oblique angle. It doesn't really matter how you approach it, but how you hit that sharp angle and how quickly you can get back on the throttle really dictates how fast you're going to be by the time you go down at the end of the big backstretch. So
is that something you would try to determine before you're at the track or while you're on that scouting lap?
Yeah, if you're new to the track and you're looking at a track map or you're watching some video, you can definitely see how the guys that are racing. Go watch some club racing videos. Go watch some some guys who are racing slower cars like Specky 30, Spec Miata. Watch these guys that have to maintain some momentum. Watch how they do it. They do a turn, and even if your car is completely unlike that, you're going to learn some good lessons from the momentum racers, I think. Yeah, and then you'll sort of watch. It'll be obvious when they're like, all right, I'm going to eat dirt on this turn just so that I can maximize this turn and this exit so that I can get a good run off the straightaways.
Yeah, because you could tell, like Road Atlanta 6 and 7, 6 won't really matter, all things considered, to a momentum Miata car, but 7.
And a lot of folks drive 6 like it totally doesn't matter. So I love it. Take 6 as slow as you want. It matters to me.
Oh, it does, but it matters more 7 because you're going to be going down the infinite. I mean, that straightaway for a Miata is an infinite straightaway. So it
is. Yeah, you can check you can check your Twitters, your Tumblrs, whatever you got to do. Yeah. Check your emails.
Yep.
But I joke about turn 6, but there's a lot of people that don't go fast enough through that turn. That's such a fast, fun turn. But yeah, you're totally right. You just kind of funnel through turn 6 just to get to the opportunity to really max out turn 7 and hopefully beat that other Miata you're next to that you've been racing for 2 laps door to door.
Yeah, so that would be one, not where you just give away 6, but you want to think about 6 to maximize 7.
Exactly. Yeah. You want your finish of 6 to be setting you up to just completely jam through 7. And in a car like a Miata or something like that with turn 7 or oak tree, if you've managed the entry in the early rotation, you should hopefully. And I'm not talking about overslowing too much, but I want to be rotated and back on the throttle as I'm coming across the apex. Just give myself that much more straightaway. So I will throw a little bit away in the first portion of the corner just to get myself rotated and back on the gas just to get myself more straightaway.
All right, so that's how you get to a new track for the first time. Hopefully do a little homework before you get there and learn it as quick as you can while you're there.
Exactly. Study a track map before you go because, hopefully you've read a book or two about driving and you understand, you want to be as fast as you can down the straightaway. So have a plan in mind as you're looking at that track map. And hopefully, at least for me, when I look at a track map, I'm going, okay, this is going to be a great course. My car's going to do great here. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a little concerned about how this is going to work. So I'm going to see that, see when I get there. But I'm going to have a plan, hopefully, for the entire course before I pop in there.
And there's nothing wrong with talking to one of your friends or somebody you meet at the track who knows the track well.
Absolutely. Anything that makes you faster, snap that mess up. Talk to somebody like, oh yeah, here's how you want to do turn 1. I was at an AER race and racing a Miata and we were
pitted next to some other Miata guys, and the whole weekend, the Miata, like, it was like a Miata cabal running around the track, just a handful of us just banging around all together. So I would get out of the car and talk to these guys, and he's like, yeah, I mean, you were up there with us, but, you know, I was behind you, and you were good everywhere else on the track, but the place I could catch up to you was turn one. You were over slow in turn one about 5 miles an hour. I was like, oh, so next time I went out, I was doing a little bit faster because I realized that was a weak spot for me.
Yeah.
So pick up anything you can. Anything that puts tenths in your pocket, do it.
Yep.
Tenths or seconds.
Yeah. Or tenths, either way. All right. Very well, sir. Thank you.